Hello everyone, how's it going? So today we're talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 again, and yeah, Nintendo just keeps digging themselves deeper with this console's PR reception. Now, look, this console is going to sell gangbusters, let's face it. The game reveals for this console are actually really cool. They have Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I'm personally excited for this one. Metroid Prime 4, God, I've been waiting forever for that game. The Dust Bloods, which is, you know, it's a mixed reception game. Even though it's coming from Software, you need a Nintendo Switch to play the game, which a lot of From Software players usually play on PC, exception being Bloodborne, not to mention that you also need a Nintendo Switch Online account. It's just a lot of stuff with that, but I'm really excited for Metroid Prime 4 and Donkey Kong. But what a lot of people were not happy about, rightfully so, was the price. And let's face it, they've been hiding this for a while. Throughout the entire Direct that they announced in Nintendo Switch 2, people had to search up the price because they didn't show it. And it just got worse for them because then Game Keys, the real reveal about these things, where some physical games are available as Game Key card, insert the Game Key to download the full game to your system. So there are going to be certain games that don't even have the full game on the cartridge, so it's just like e-waste that's wasting the console. It's just like, why? Like, I really think there should be like a federal law that states if you buy a piece of music, a movie, a video game as a physical product, that physical product should be playable without an internet connection. Am I crazy to think that? I really think that should be a thing because I'm tired of these companies selling you basically worthless disc. Like, why even bother printing a disc if the game is not there on the disc? I don't get it. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. But yeah, like I said, Nintendo was digging themselves deeper with Doug Bowser, basically deciding to pull an Xbox One down metric. So he said, we recognize that there are some people that may not be able to afford a Switch 2 price point. That's why we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available, so people still have an opportunity to come to our gaming universe and be part of these characters in this world and see the value, if you will, in whatever rug on the platform they come in. Now, yeah, if you're as old as I am, you remember this quote from Don Matrick about the Xbox One's reveal.
Who aren't able to get some form of connectivity, it's called Xbox 360.
Right. Stick with 360, that's your message if you don't,
Well,
if you don't like it?
if you have zero
He immediately went back on it, but that one quote destroyed their console generation. The Xbox is still paying for this, and I remember when Sony came out with this rebuttal.
Thanks.
And then now we have nowadays where they don't even release the full game on their disc. So yeah, not exactly a great point when it comes to this stuff. And yes, the Switch is priced high. A lot of people are stating because of the tariffs, this is why this is all happening. Not the digital games, but the high price point. But these prices were set into motion way before the tariffs went into effect. So I would argue against that. We might see a change in that because they did delay pre-orders for the console in response to the tariffs. So not exactly a really good situation. I doubt they're going to change the price, but you know, anything can happen, especially nowadays. But most importantly with the Switch 2, it just becomes incredibly more problematic because I saw this interview with Doug Bowser about the variable pricing when it comes to this stuff. And the thing is, back in my day, yeah, I'm really old, I grew up during the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis era, and if you grew up during that era, you know that variable pricing was a thing, that certain games were priced higher and lower based on who made them. Nintendo first-party titles like Super Mario Legend of the Seven Stars were priced higher than games made by third-party publishers like Capcom or Konami. So when it came to that era, I don't know when fixed pricing became a thing. I think it was during the Xbox and PlayStation 2. I could be wrong about that because I remember Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and Sly Cooper. Those were budget-friendly titles that sold for $40. Devil May Cry was also another one. So I think it was actually during the Xbox 360 where they set prices for games as a standard. But yeah, when it came to this, it could mean that we could see a return of variable pricing, which can be a pro and a con. So let's hear what Doug had to say.
Kart World Direct that'll be coming that'll show even the deeper feature set.
Let's
establish a
the benchmark for a AAA game from Nintendo. What should we be expecting in the Switch 2 generation as far as how much we're going to be spending on these games?
Yeah, I would say that we're not really looking to establish a benchmark for pricing. We look at every game and every experience and determine what we believe is the right price point based on that experience. You've had a chance to play Mario Kart World and see how deeply immersive it is and how fun it is. And we haven't shown everything yet.
He's in
we
11th
still have
place.
a Mario Kart World Direct that'll be coming that'll show even the deeper feature set. So we believe based on the depth and breadth of the play and the repeatability of the play over time, the pricing that we announced is the right pricing. But again, other games like you mentioned, Donkey Kong Bonanza, it's going to be at a $70 price point, because that is what we feel is the right price point for that particular gaming experience.
So there's no standard price, basically.
There's no standard price.
What
that's
about
right.
for third-party titles? Is that kind of up to the developer?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
It's really their choice based, again, on the type of gameplay experience that they're bringing.
Let's talk about supply.
So there you have it. I think Doug is trying to bring back variable pricing where games are priced based on what the developer and publisher want. So obviously Nintendo will price their games higher, whereas third-party companies can price their game lower and so forth. The issue with this statement is that they're not going to do that. Like, they're going to 100% maximize as much money as they can get from the consumer, and it's not going to look pretty in the long run. Like I said, back in my day, that was a thing, and it was not a successful thing, because if it was, it would have remained the same norm for years to come. But the second that they were phased out, they were completely phased out, and a new standard pricing was established. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about inflation and all that stuff? Look, we're talking about the here and now when it comes to this situation. And the here and now is that this can lead to a lot of huge collapses among gaming industry people, because it's going to be... And I know people are going to say, well, based on inflation, this is going to be the new standard for games, and they've been saying for years that we need to raise game prices and we need to do all of this. The problem with that type of thinking is that it's going to destroy sales, because at their core, games are already pretty expensive and inflation has not kept up with income and wages. It's just not going to be a good sign for a lot of people. You're going to sell far less copies because people will spend far less on games. Heck, even like 5-6 years ago, people could only afford one game. They usually would just buy the standard Call of Duty or Madden to play with their friends. I would say rarely does anyone buy 2 to 3 games per year unless you're really into gaming like a person like me. But the average Joe, they're likely not going to do that. And when you have to pay $80 to $90 for a single game, chances are that game has to last for a very long time. Granted, Mario Kart would last a very long time, but then you still have to pay for the online system, so you're paying even if you buy the full priced game in that situation. So this entire notion is just going to fall apart in the long run. People spend less, and they'll likely more invest into games that will last longer, like GTA 6, which... this is me just being very hopeful, but imagine if Take-Two Interactive comes out and announces GTA 6 releasing this year, and they said they pulled a PlayStation, like with PlayStation and Sega Saturn, they would just come up and say $59.99. Dude, that would completely just curb stomp almost every major release if they sold it for that price. It would just be like, okay, now we're buying GTA 6. That's it. But in this regard for the Nintendo Switch, I really think that they're not going to make as many sales as they would in the long run. Look, I don't know the behind-the-scenes deals. Maybe this is the only way they could sell these types of games, given how high development costs have skyrocketed, not to mention parts and other factors. That could be entirely the case. But on the opposite side, what are you going to do about the people who could only buy one game a year? You're expecting them to just spend it on one Mario Kart game, pay for the subscription? Likely they're just going to say, I can't do this. And when it comes to parents with kids, because Nintendo consoles are usually the entryway when it comes to gaming, and lots of kids prefer Nintendo consoles, can you imagine a parent having to pay around $500 for a single game console, and not to mention the games, the subscription services, as I stated, the accessories, all of that is just going to add up, and chances are they're just going to be like, well, we're just going to get you to Switch, and one day they might get you to Switch 2, which will just add up to over $1,000 at that point. It doesn't help that Nintendo is also selling that overglorified instruction manual like it's some sort of worthy of $10. Like, they're selling it for $10, not to mention the upgrades to their console game, to their games, like Legend of Zelda Breath of Wild, which came out over 10 years. I think it's over a decade old. That game is really old. No, it came out in 2017, I believe. Either way, almost a decade old, and they're still selling it for full price. Heck, when Microsoft offers you free upgrades and they're the good guy in this situation, I feel like you are definitely doing things wrong in that situation. Just give the free upgrade. It's just that Nintendo used to be a very consumer-friendly company in a lot of ways. Like, remember when GameCubes were $50 a pop? They used to have backwards compatibility. Yes, the Switch 2 does have backwards compatibility with Switch 1 games, but they used to go so much further when it came to consumer-friendly options, and here it just seems they're going under the route of Microsoft and Sony, paying for upgrades, minuscule upgrades for games that people barely notice. I saw the comparison. Like, did anyone notice the difference between the two Legend of Zelda games? I didn't. And I really think it's just going to suffer in the long run. Like, Nintendo at its core will still make a huge profit on it. There is a reason they chose Mario Kart World as the game that will have the highest price point for a game in recent memory. The reason is because they know this game is extremely popular. It's going to sell well. If they did this for any other of the titles, if they did it for Donkey Kong or Metroid, it would not have the same impact. I would argue that only the most hardcore of hardcore fans would buy those games and just go for Mario Kart. But the fact that Mario Kart is often considered, like, again, the key game for a lot of Nintendo consoles, right up there with a mainline Super Mario game, they did this on purpose. Like no one's going to be able to convince me otherwise. This was done to showcase, hey, people will still buy it even if it's $80. No, they bought it because it's Mario Kart, not because it's $80. Like, let's state facts for what they are. But tell me what you think in the comments below. I really think that this is just a PR disaster, and the worst part about this PR disaster is that it's not going to mean anything once the console is released. People are still going to buy it, and I have to buy it for my job, but I wish things were better, but they're not going to get better. They're going to get worse, and it's not going to be long before we see another price hike, because as he stated, as Doug stated, it's going to be variable pricing, and that can swing both ways. So the next mainline Mario game can well be $110 if they wanted to, and just say, well, the quality of the game speaks for itself. So there you go. That's it from me. Like or dislike, your choice. Bye.